Welcome back to the garden. We're right at the very end of June now. Already in the truck we have harvested some nice new potatoes that we're really looking forward to. This Calabrese that you've seen me take, the central heads to these went a couple of weeks ago when we finished those. And this is actually a secondary shoot. So we're getting quite a lot of bonus crops here in our new dig garden. There's another one here. And actually I'm going to take this one off the stalk. And you can see we've got a nice little secondary harvest there. This was almost broken. It may have been that I've stood on it at some point as I was coming through here and taking some leaves off, but you can see it was starting to get a bit hard, so this is not going to grow anymore, but that's a lovely piece of broccoli to have on your plate.
It certainly is.
Now in today's video we are going to do a quick garden tour to show you the state of play, where we are with it all, and along the way we should be doing a few bits and pieces of harvests. Quite a bit going on the weekend, so what we do need to do is to have a few veg. And for those of you that haven't seen us harvest a Savoy King, this is actually what they look like.
Beautiful cabbage.
It is. Nice tight head, and we've grown this cabbage really for probably the last 2 or 3 years, and it's never let us down. We really do like this cabbage. We tried another one, didn't we, which is our Providence, and I really do like these too. They're now starting to heart up, but these are not an F1, whereas the Savoy King are. They're harvested in a much quicker time and they're much larger. But I actually quite like the look of these traditional looking Savoy cabbages. So I think the learning that I'll take from this is that the cabbages that I'm going to sow in February in order to get a harvest now, we're going to stick with the Savoy King. We don't have many because we don't particularly eat many cabbages at this time of the year. But we just like to have some fresh greens. And that will do. And then for the rest of the year, it looks like it's going to be these. And the ones that you saw us planting out in plot 3 a few weeks back, and the ones that we shall go on to plant out in plot 4, not only do these cabbages look good, but actually, I'll tell you what are they going to look like when they get a bit of frost on them? That leaf is going to look stunning, isn't it?
It is. And they're a lovely, slightly bluey green, aren't they, I think?
They are.
As well.
They are.
Lovely.
But the very first cabbage that we harvested from this row was probably beginning of June. And this is what's happened here. So this has thrown out a new side stem. And look, it's trying to make another little cabbage. You can see it's thrown out several little stems. And if you leave them for long enough, you can get a little bonus harvest. This is where we put these turnips in, and they're looking really good too. fact, we've been already having a harvest off these. We had some yesterday evening, didn't we?
They are lovely.
And they really are a gorgeous little turnip. They're lovely and sweet when they're like that.
Nice just sliced into a salad.
Yes, they are. I also like them quite lightly fried in some butter, along with some nice shallots and courgettes when they're ready. Now, we mustn't neglect our celeriac, because I know there are quite a few of you that are growing along with us. This was the second lot that we put in. You can see they went in as really tiny plants, and they've come along really nicely, and they will grow along. They don't even get to a harvest until mid to late October, so they're in the ground for a long time, which is why we sowed these turnips. They're going to be gone long before these need the space. You can see the ones here, the celeriacs here, these were the ones that we sowed first of all, that we still had some. So remember, we lost some of the first sowing that we had. Yes, they're a lot larger, but these are quickly catching them up and coming along. So hopefully yours are looking like that. They're looking nice, strong plants. You'll see when they get to this size, they've got quite a nice stem already. You won't see any of the bulb until way past summer. We'll be into autumn, September, and then they really start to swell up. And that's when you get the really nice, large celeriacs. You can see we've been busy chomping away with our new potatoes. We're almost at the end. We've got 1, 2, 3 more tubs left. And then it'll be time to start on Mrs. W's favourites, which are the shallots.
Yes, on the other side of the garden.
The celery is actually doing really well. Really pleased with that. And it's always important that you do keep the celery well watered. And then lastly, look at the curry squash. They are rampant. We already have some squash forming.
Let me see if I can get closer so you can see.
Remember, these are not a summer squash, they are an autumn squash. And you generally start to see these back end of August through into September. But they're doing fantastically well. We also did grow another honey boot, which actually you saved the seed from last season, didn't you?
I did, and it's starting to romp away. It took a little bit longer than the curry squash, didn't it, to get established, but it's now it is. It's definitely seems to be quite happy.
Yep.
And that's a little hunter butternut beside it, which has also taken a little bit of time
to get going.
Yeah.
Yes. As for the one next door, it's really struggling. And we do actually think it's because in there is the honeysuckle, which is slowly but surely scrambling its way over our pergola.
And looking really good.
So we're just taking a little look at plot 2 with the squash. You can see that some of these beetroot have actually gone to seed, which is really bizarre. I haven't actually had any beetroot go to seed before, and this variety is called Bolt Hardy.
Not living up to its name this year.
Not quite, but we'll just continue to take the ones that haven't gone to seed. And if you ever doubted the multi-sowing method, you get some lovely sized beetroot. Just 4 or 5 in a clump. This one will be the next one, then this, and then lastly the slightly smaller one here. Providing it doesn't go to seed, that will catch the rest of them up. Actually, I did forget one thing, Mrs. W, and that's if we just go back just to plot 1. These are our Zabroon shallots. Now, we did a video well over a year ago on how to sow shallot seeds, and none of them germinated. And the company in question did send us some more seeds, but it got too late in the year to be sowing them. So we sowed them this year. Very successful with the germination, I'm very pleased to say. But these shallots are looking amazing. They're looking huge. Hello, Poppy. Hello. They're looking absolutely huge. And they're not due for a harvest until August and September. So I have high hopes for those. So if you are one of those people that watched how to sow shallot seeds and you want to see how these particular ones actually end up, then keep watching, because we'll feature those all the way through the year until we do get to the harvest time. So back to plot 2, where we were looking. You can see some of the potatoes are starting to fall over. This is a bit of a combination of, we had quite a breezy night about 3 nights ago. It was really quite windy. But also you can see that the plants are actually starting to go yellow. They're not far from their harvest time. They're 16 weeks old now. They've been in this ground 16 weeks. Main crop potatoes, you're looking at anything from 20 plus weeks. And I know, because we grew this variety last year, Maris Piper, that 20 weeks, and there's some great sized potatoes. These will fall over even more and die back, and then it will be ready for us to harvest them. So hopefully by the end of July, beginning of August, we can then harvest them. What we did do, remember in an earlier video we said to you about taking the flowers off, and actually we took the majority of the flowers off of our potatoes, but we did leave the odd 1 or 2 with flowers on so that we can do a comparison. And it's easy actually to see which ones still have the flowers on, because they now have the seed pods on them. So there aren't very many, because I like to really maximise the harvest of potatoes that we get. So we always cut the flowers off so that these plants can absolutely 100% concentrate themselves in making potatoes and not seed. But they're fine. We'll come back to those towards the end of July, when we might just start to get our first harvest. Now, the pea arch. There are many, many peas. In fact, there are so many that Mrs. W cannot possibly keep up with them.
I've been trying.
Of course. But what we do need to do is to begin harvesting. You can see these alderman peas, they make lovely large peas, and they still remain really sweet and tasty even when they are this large. So we will have a very busy job on our hands in harvesting the ones that are ready. And if we keep harvesting them, not let them go over, they'll keep producing flowers. But I have to say, not one of these pods have actually made it down to our house yet. Mrs. W is just eating them, and eating them, and eating them.
Well, they're my breakfast, my lunch, my evening meal, and my snacks in between.
Not far from here where we live, I say not far, within 30 miles of here is where the Festival of Latitude takes place. And that will be happening towards the end of next week. But Mrs. W doesn't particularly like to go to those, she likes a pea fest. Now, plot 3 you'll be very familiar with if you're a regular viewer of our channel. It's gone through a transformation over the last week or so, where we put the sprouts and the kale in. The parsnips have always been there, they're doing really well, they'll quietly grow away, and we'll have lovely parsnips as we get to October, November time. And then of course we put our leeks in, and we put the swede in with a catch crop of radish. And that was all after harvesting broad beans from this plot, garlic, shallots, and where the leeks are, that was where those cauliflowers were that we had a bit earlier in the year, towards the back end of April. You can get a good view of just what a jungle these peas are.
That gust of wind caught a little bit of those, the gust that caught the potatoes, didn't it? And
Yes, they did.
We've had to hitch them back a bit, but they're alive.
Still alive. Now, I just wanted to give you a quick look at the onions. These are the ones that are in plot 4. Doing really well. I always didn't thin those ones out too well, Mrs. W.
Oh.
Because I normally get them down to 3s and 4s, 5 at the most. But you can see they're now starting to swell up. And the main reason for that is because we have gone past the summer solstice. And that means the days are shortening, and that triggers the onion bulb into bulbing up. Now, of course, along the way, we always lose 1 or 2. That's par for the course. But you can see that by multi-sowing those, you're never going to get huge onions, but what you are going to get is 3 or 4 medium-sized onions, and they're really happy to grow together. So this is a bunch of 3, and you can see they're growing away really nicely. And in this space here, most people would only grow 1 onion. But we've multi-sown, and we've got 3 here ultimately. And you can see they're growing really nicely, and they're going to be 3 really quite nice sized onions by the time we get to the end of July. Now, the carrots are doing really well in here. We're still harvesting carrots every day when we want them. They're clearly getting larger as time goes on, but we now need to be sowing our main crop carrots for the autumn and winter period, and for us that will be a variety called Eskimo. They're going in there beside these, a nice couple of rows of those, and that's a really good time to be sowing your main crop carrots that are going to give you a harvest toward the end of September through October, November. They've got lots of time to grow quite large. I have actually sown carrots in August and got some nice carrots, but by sowing them sort of now, June time, right at the beginning of July, then you can assure yourselves that you'll get some really nice, quite large carrots. So instead of having these summer ones, we really enjoy them. They're lovely and sweet, and but we never let them get that big. So we need a bunch of 5, 6, 7 on a plate. But the ones that we're going to be harvesting the autumn and winter period, we want nice large carrots. I can see that we certainly haven't harvested quite enough radish down there, Mrs. W, because they're actually
we have a flower
going to flower. That often happens at this time of the year. And I think last weekend and for most of this week, it's been a really, really hot period. We've had temperatures of the late 20s and 30 degrees, and that's made some of these plants actually bolt and go to seed. But no matter, the ones that haven't, we're still harvesting, and you always want to be sowing things like radishes and spring onions every month, so that you have a fresh supply. And then those that haven't made it because they've gone to seed, well, they're just going to make more food for the beast, aren't they? And they will help feed the next generation of plants. Now, if you remember, in this bed also, this is where we sowed our brassicas for the month of September, so these should harvest in September. And then the other side, we actually did do a whole row of Calibres. And the only reason we've done a whole row of Calibres is because we'll enjoy those heads, and I won't need this piece of land until the following year. So like last year, we can just let them keep producing their side shoots, and every week we get a nice little harvest off them of more Calibres. It's really noticeable just how quickly these plants grow. Now, the ones we put in February, they stayed like that for a very, very long time. These have literally, I think these have been in 3 weeks, and they went in as tiny plants like so. Look at them now. So they're going on really, really well. Greenhouse. Much going on in the greenhouse. Tomatoes have really started to get the shift on. I'm really pleased just how well, not just the tomatoes, but everything has grown, because for us, by our standards, they went in really quite late. We've even got the first couple of tomatoes on here.
We've got some little tomatoes.
It won't be long before we can enjoy the fresh taste of tomatoes. The aubergines, well, we already have the first flower here.
Can I pick that up?
And the other plants are actually now starting to bud up, so again, shouldn't be too long before we have some lovely aubergines to eat. Now behind me, the cucumber. This is the variety that we grow called Pissandra. And you can see there's lots of cucumbers on it. The ones down at the bottom, it's not going to be long before we start seeing some cucumbers to eat. They don't get, 18 inches long like some cucumbers. Probably 6 to 8 inches, but they do get quite large width-ways.
There's quite a few coming, isn't there?
There are. And we really like this particular variety because it is all female flowers, so you don't have to keep picking all those male flowers off. And if you don't pick those off, then the fruits will turn bitter. As you know, one of the things that we did do last year was that we overwintered some chilies and some peppers. But just to be on the safe side, in case we got it wrong, we also sowed some new plants. The new plants are here. They're looking really good, they're looking really healthy, and they are now starting to get their first flower. There's one in there.
Yeah, they're budding up, aren't they?
But that is the only one at the moment. However, a completely different story with the overwintered peppers. You can see we already have some on here, and there's more flowers coming. It's much more advanced, and we're certainly going to get the fruits much earlier. And then if we look at the chilies, well, they're well on the way. Last year, these plants, we didn't see any chilies until the back end of September, did we? But we're going to have chilies far more earlier than that, and hopefully much more productive. You can see still there's more flowers coming.
Looking good.
So we really regard the overwintering process as a success. Not that there's anything wrong with resowing seed every year, but you just get the things just that little bit earlier. So we're still getting strawberries, but they are coming to an end now. They have been most enjoyable.
And they've probably been the best harvest of strawberries we've ever had, haven't they?
They have, yes.
Definitely worked, I think, us moving the strawberry patch.
They have, and we've actually been out here probably most evenings to get a harvest of some, haven't we?
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's if the grandchildren haven't had them, because they tend to spot them long before we do. But
that's
all that goodness, all that goodness they get inside them, hey?
Even little baby Rosie is enjoying this now.
However, we don't need to worry that the strawberries are on the wane, because the raspberries are ready. Taste of summer. Oh, you cannot beat a raspberry fresh off the bush in the same way you don't with strawberries. But, Oh, it's been a whole 12 months since I've enjoyed that. But they're back. And as you can see, back in abundance. So when the strawberries finish, the raspberries come on stream. That's the great thing about when you grow your own. You don't need many plants, but if you've got raspberries, strawberries clearly come first, and then these raspberries are now on stream. we guesstimate probably a week or so, and then we'll have gooseberries. They're already starting to not be so sharp, aren't they?
They're definitely getting sweeter.
Yes. And then we'll have the autumn raspberries that will follow, but although they're autumn raspberries, they tend to be ready sometime in August. But they do crop for a long time, from August all the way through to November, if we don't get early frost that will kill them off. We have actually had the odd one or two that have been ready now, haven't we?
We have, an odd one.
And they're not at their full height yet. And then, of course, you can see the flowers are already there. So we're going to have an abundance of blackberries that we can also enjoy after the gooseberries, the strawberries and the raspberries, summer raspberries anyway, have finished. We've been enjoying our rhubarb too, but it is coming to the point now where you need to stop harvesting the rhubarb to give it a chance to build itself up again for next year. Shouldn't really harvest it much beyond the end of June. But the last few stalks that we get, we tend to then take those and then process them and freeze them, so that we can enjoy that rhubarb taste a bit later on in the year, and we can mix it with the lovely things like the raspberries and the blackberries. And that reminds me, Mrs. W, the black currants are also now starting to colour up, and if you just go around there, the red currants are starting to colour up.
Oh yes.
And it won't be long before we can replenish our red currant jelly. Legendary in the Wilson household. So we'll just go over to plot 5. Actually, on our way there you can see that this is where we normally have all of our fires. And it's somewhat disappeared, and we're trying to do a little bit of work here. And that's because of something really exciting that's going to be happening on our plot. But more about that a little bit later. And if you want to see exactly what is going on here and you're not subscribed to our channel yet, then please do so. We would love you to be part of our journey. But plot 5 as it is, we've had some lovely harvests from here. They had more or less the same plants that were down in plot 1. And you can see all the centre heads have gone out from the Canaberries. And we're just waiting for the side shoots to appear. And we'll take any of those off that come along. Again, the Providence, they're looking really quite good. And down the centre we did have some cauliflower. We've been enjoying the cauliflower during this month. It mostly harvested over this month of June, so we've had quite a nice crop off that and really it's been really quite enjoyable. It's the first time I think that we've actually grown cauliflower to harvest at this time of the year, so it was a real luxury for us to have some nice cauliflower. So that's June done with. We're about to tip over into July. Things are looking really good here in our new dig garden here in Norfolk in the UK. And we're really pleased with the harvest that we're getting and what's to come. And of course, with one eye on the future, we already have plants in the ground that will give us food for the autumn and winter period. And there'll be more of that to come. It doesn't just stop here. Although we won't be sowing as much over the next few months, we still need to be sowing things in order that they can go into the ground to feed us even into 2024. Do let us know in the comments below how you're getting on with your garden. I'll be really interested to hear. And in particular for those of you that live on the western side of our country, because it's been quite hot, it's been quite the reverse. Normally it's where we are, where it's really hot, dry, but that's happened on the western side of the country for the majority of the spring and early summer season. So I'll be interested to read your comments on how you're getting on. But I do hope that you are getting plenty of harvests and plenty of abundance. That's our harvest for today. Got a cabbage, a beetroot, turnips, potatoes, and some Calibris. Mrs. W actually tells me she's going to make a nice broccoli soup.
Broccoli and cheese soup, I think.
Broccoli and cheese soup.
Yes, I've found a recipe.
That'll be my starter for 7. We shall see you next time.